Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You're good?
Yes.
Very fine?
Yeah, very okay. Ma'am.
For the very person who is watching you for the first time,
Yes.
who is Protas now?
Yeah, Protas is a very simple gentleman from Mombasa here.
Simple in terms of?
It's not complicated, as in, he's just a very simple guy, very humble. Yeah, and of course, who loves matters governance.
Right.
Yes.
Somebody will ask, Bwana Protas, what do you get out of this commenting about politics? Is it even important?
We have no luxury. We have actually no luxury to sit back and, isolate ourselves from matters of politics. And as per se, people have demonized their whole aspect about politics. But in our day-to-day living, politics is part of our life. Politics is there. And without politics, then the world cannot be. There will be no governance, and without governance, then how shall we ever, because the socio-economic aspect, we have got the social life and we've got the economic life, all dependent upon the political aspect. So this political aspect engineers these other elements of life.
Right. Yes. But in Kenya, we do politics a lot. Do you agree to that?
And every other nation, unless we have not defined what politics really is, but every nation that has got governance, that has a constitution, that has the rule of law, that has got the economic life and the social welfare, all these nations live politically.
Okay.
So politics is part of us, is part of our life, and people who sit, like for example, those guys who are so much into football, they really champion football. They will talk about Arsenal, they'll talk about Manchester United and other stuffs like that. And then they think that that is now all life. Even in the whole aspect of football, there's politics already.
Right.
Yes.
So politics is everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And it's part and parcel of our living.
Correct. So it's good to discuss politics.
Right. Before even we get too far,
Yes.
we are looking at the road to the 2022 general election.
Yeah.
Is the road clear, or we see some kind of a blur?
Yeah. Actually, the last time we were here, we were talking about analyzing the whole scenario about 2022. And in general, politics is taking shape. It's dynamic in nature. And day by day, things unfold. New alliances come and form, and a new partnership come up. So we have a lot of issues pertaining the whole aspect about 2022. But right now, it is just the beginning.
Right.
Just the beginning, and we will see more changes as days goes by. More alignments, more realignments, everything we see as we progress towards 2022.
I heard people say that the road to the 2022 and the mapping is already set. That is a two-horse race between Raila Odinga, the ODM chief, and Dr. William Ruto, the deputy president. Is that as it is right now? Do you feel it's going to be that way?
I think we, the media, have tried to propagate that for a while now. We tend to focus too much only on Raila Odinga and William Ruto as the main contenders. But and that it's the media which tries to say that this is a two-horse race, because look at the event coverage. They only cover the events of Raila Odinga and the events of William Ruto. But I will tell you that it will not be a two-horse race. And the way I see this politics, the way things are moving, we are going to see...
But no, for the media, we must look where we see there is potential of politics.
Everybody is potential. Like, for example, let's look at Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka, the one that are seldom covered. We will realize that Kalonzo Musyoka was one vice president of this nation. And Musalia Mudavadi was once vice president and even deputy prime minister of this nation.
Do we see them holding rallies like the way the two guys are holding?
Now, the whole idea of holding rallies, they hold rallies. It's only that we have seen them holding rallies. Unfortunately, the media doesn't cover them.
Right.
But you go to social media, you will see that Mudavadi was in a certain place, he was addressing people, because there are other sources of information that we receive, platforms that information is covered. Nevertheless, we will see, like I said, there's pressure. Like even today, you saw the newspaper trying to say that Mudavadi must support Raila.
Right.
I was reading that. But the way I look at it, it is not going to be easy for anyone. As we progress, you can see that even the Speaker of the National Assembly the other day was in...
Justin Muturi.
Yes. He was in Nyanza. He was actually in Siaya County. And you saw the welcome that was there. You could think that it is William Ruto or Raila Odinga himself who was there, because masses stand up in large numbers. People turned up in masses just to, cheer him up.
Right.
And we've seen this one across the board. So as we progress, it won't really be a two-horse races per se. To me, and I take this one to the bank, is that Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka, either of them will go to the ballot.
Right. We'll be getting together, and we see the probability of One Kenya Alliance surviving this whole matrix, politically speaking. But you talked about masses.
Yes.
And we've seen masses out there. Every single leader who holds a rally, there is masses. Is a large mass now a factor to consider to say that so and so there's a likelihood of him winning based on the masses that attend the rally?
Actually, masses really don't transform into votes as per se. We cannot say because so many people turned up. There are two aspects in which people will turn up. People have heard that there is somebody called William Ruto, and they have never seen him.
Right.
Whether it is in good faith or in bad faith, people will come up with either just an intention of knowing who this person is, or others will come to support him, or others still will come to jeer him, meaning they don't want him. All right? Instead of cheering him, they will jeer him up. So they will come. So those three actually aspects. So masses to say that so many people turned up is going to be converted into votes. No, not really. I doubt that one politically. People who vote are busy doing other things. People who turned up in masses really don't vote. That, in fact, you will see the same people when Raila Odinga comes, the same people who will turn up again. When Mudavadi comes, the same people will turn up again. So we can't really trust them. They are not trustworthy.
Right.
Yes.
And should that bother the contestants?
Yeah, it should. Actually, as a contestant, you should know who your voters are. And do they even have, who your supporters are? Do they have voting cards? Are they registered members? Most of these people who turned up in rallies, they really don't have votes. They don't have even IDs. So let's start from there. People don't have IDs. People don't have votes. So even if they're turning up, some of them turn up because they think that others have been mobilized. They come, hopefully because they've been promised, oh, you come, cheer our man up and we will give you something. So in return, they're given something. And this one is everywhere, to everybody. Nobody should say that I don't give out money. No, we know what happens behind the door. Yeah, we know actually.
Right. We'll be getting to the voter registration exercise that is ongoing. The numbers are saying to be quite low.
Yeah.
It's not promising, looking at the targets at which the IBC is looking forward to achieve and the numbers that we are registering right now. But before even we get there, looking at the dailies today.
Yes.
Mudavadi is under pressure to join and support Raila's candidature. Is he under pressure, and from who exactly?
Actually, he's not under pressure. This is a statement that is not right. You see, what happens is even the Mudavadi supporters, those who are closer to Mudavadi, the likes of Malala, they warned, Malala actually is on record warning Mudavadi, should you go to support Raila Odinga, we will all go to William Ruto. So it's a postmortem. He was given like a postmortem. You do this, the consequence will be this. Mudavadi is a strong candidate, is a good candidate, is a ripe candidate, and nobody should say that he should support somebody.
Do you feel it's Mudavadi's time?
Actually, 2022 is Mudavadi's time. And looking at the NASA as it was, NASA, I can say that if there is somebody whom, if they proposed, will have defeated, will give William Ruto a hard time to Mudavadi. If the whole NASA brigade will say, like for Raila Odinga, he says Mudavadi Tosha, and then let the Kalonzo Musyoka deputize Mudavadi, and then let these other people, Gideon Moi and Baba himself, let him now be there as a guide. You will see that this government, they will take this government very early in the morning.
Right.
Yes.
Speaking about Mudavadi's factor, is already in One Kenya Alliance.
Yes.
And One Kenya Alliance is seen to be kind of weak compared to the different functions that are and the different wings that are being crafted here. Look at the UDA, look at the side of the ODM chief Raila Odinga, and also look at the One Kenya Alliance. And the gentleman that you're saying that his time is ripe is one over the few individuals within One Kenya Alliance. How does it resonate to you?
You see, for me, what I see this way, that first of all, Musalia Mudavadi, as per se, in himself, he has the personality to be the president. He has the will, actually he has the whole aspect, the character, the qualities to be the president of this nation at this time. But let me tell you the trick that is in William Ruto. William Ruto is a very smart politician. William Ruto, the other day when he was in Kakamega, he was commenting and he said, these gentlemen, all of them, unless they unite, if they come one by one, I'll beat them. I'll be beating them one by one, I'll be beating them.
Okay.
So why is he saying you'll be beating if they come one unless they unite? What he knows is that if they dare unite, then there are those who will not be happy with the unity, depending on who will be who will have been proposed as the president, and therefore
it will work on his favor.
On his favor, because he shall have defections. There are those who doesn't want Raila candidate anymore. There are those who doesn't want Mudavadi candidate. There are those who doesn't want Kalonzo. All those who will not feel comfortable will, of course, come out of that coalition, and then it will be to the advantage of William Ruto. And two, again, he knows if they come one by one, let's say Mudavadi and Kalonzo, one Kenya Alliance on one side, and then Raila Odinga ODM plus the Uhuru side on another side. So they are divided. And now it becomes easy again for him to win. So if there are people who are under pressure, it's the other side actually. But William Ruto is very comfortable.
Right.
Yes.
Speaking about Mudavadi as a factor, we've had leaders saying that some of his allies are saying that he should maintain and maintain the grounds tight, looking to become president 2022, and he should not support any other individual during the election. But according to the dailies today, they're talking about how the government and the inside side of the government and the deep state here, they've mentioned it, how they are working to craft, to make Mudavadi work together with Raila. And also we've seen just recently in the past few months, we saw President Uhuru Kenyatta meeting the One Kenya Alliance. We have no clue what they had to discuss about that. Why do you feel like there is this pressure from government to make the two work together?
We have had these meetings of this One Kenya Alliance, ODM, what with the president severally. We haven't seen something substantive coming up other than the whole aspect of interview. Some gentlemen sitting at the corner and then trying to interview one by one, saying, oh, how much do you have? You don't have money to run for the presidency. And in that case, it's only Gideon Moi who, because his father must have gotten him some ill-gotten wealth that is now bragging over. I wish Kenyans would really wake up to the reality of what's happening. And one of the realities should be like, let us not elect somebody because he has money. Or let's not elect somebody. Let's look also at the integrity aspect of this particular person, whether he fits to be a president of a country, not even for a country, even at the county and ward and the constituency levels. Let's look at the integrity question. But nevertheless,
among us, the few that have been mentioned to be wanting to get into the presidential bid, I think none does not have integrity questions there.
All of them have got integrity questions. Right. All of them. But now the degree also of this, all of us are human beings. We have all made mistakes in the past. Nobody, even those wananchis who keep on throwing words and shouting and then pointing fingers. Oh, this one, so and so is not integrity. It has no integrity or integral values. All of them are all part and parcel. In fact, we are the co-authors of our misfortunes of these integrity question issues. In 2013, Uhuru Kenyatta had no integrity to vie for the presidency. But what did Wananchi do? They voted for him overwhelmingly. They look at that aspect. So in Kenya, chapter 4 of the constitution has been ignored. Chapter 6 actually has been ignored, where we talk about the whole issue about integrity. Even the IEBC question. And I saw this one coming up during the proceedings of the Court of Appeal when the BBI issue was being taken to the Court of Appeal, and one of the whatever the lawyers was prosecuting the case said that if the IEBC will have followed the integrity chapter 6 of the Constitution, because actually in that very year the court had ruled here in Mombasa that President Uhuru Kenyatta had no integrity. He was not fit to vie for the presidency. But the IEBC, being one of the qualifications, the IEBC ignored that, and they cleared the president. So that aspect have not really been taken good care of. But I wish we will go to scrutinize each and every individual to look at, like you saw the other day, the Pandora Papers issue coming up, where the president himself has wealth outside, which they say is it's legal. Actually, it's not an offense for somebody to have an offshore account. Nevertheless, why should you have an offshore account? The Constitution is very clear. Any public officer should not have an account outside in foreign country. That is the Constitution. Any public officer, a state officer, should not have an account outside the country. Why? How shall we even account for that? Can you really come up and explain to us how this wealth was being acquired?
Right.
You say, oh, it was because of my father. Your father? Okay, fine. It was because of your father, but now you are in the shoe. Do you even follow up to see how did my father acquire all this? And now you take...
Do you feel that chapter of integrity can kind of get the light of the day and we begin working in line with it as a country?
As it is now, we're still maybe in 2027, but as it is now, or 2032. But right now, people are ignoring that aspect, which is the most important aspect that each and everyone should be actually considering as one of the factors before you elect somebody.
Right.
But again, to get back to what you had just alluded earlier on, and we are talking about the whole aspect of, because we are on Mudavadi and we are on Raila Odinga, and we are also talking about Kalonzo and the pressure that is on Mudavadi to support
Raila
Odinga. It is actually those who are ODM sympathizers, those who are thinking that unless, and they have foreseen that unless Mudavadi supports Raila Odinga cannot win. He cannot win, and that is the reality. Unless either of them supports each other.
What do you mean?
Because look at this, look at the equation, the matrix, very simple. 2017, we had NASA, Kalonzo Musyoka together with Raila Odinga and Musalia Mudavadi. And and then they lost, plus Wetangula also involved. They lost. Now, if they divided, if united they lost.
You now have Central Kenya.
Do you think? No, Central is not backing them. Central, to say that because the president is there, president is not contesting for anything. He's only trying to, and we have seen from what I've just explaining,
right.
Even Central people are saying that this person was egocentric. Was an egocentric man. He was only trying to look at his selfish interest. He has no interest of the. Right. So Mount Kenya as a region, as per se, to me, we cannot say that it's for the president. Maybe let me just say it's half.
50-50.
50-50.
We'll be looking at it, and I'll be asking you this question.
Yes.
Who is climbing Mount Kenya to the topmost point between the two?
Now, two factors will be put in place. Right now, we have seen Muturi coming up. You also see Martha Karua. We also see Peter Kenneth. We also see now that those politicians from Mount Kenya who have positioned themselves to be nominated as the running mate of all these individuals. Of course, the moment you nominate, let's say Raila Odinga goes to nominate Peter Kenneth as his running mate, and then William Ruto will see it necessary to go and take Martha Karua because she's a woman. And if, because there is also an aspect of running mate being a woman for you to be able to have also practiced this gender role aspect, then another one will go for, let's say, this Waiguru lady. So you take Waiguru, another one takes or Karua or maybe any of these politicians. You see what you have done? You have simply cut the whole thing into two.
Right. Very true. I want to take a short break here before we come to dig deeper into the Mount Kenya region. But before I even go, does One Kenya Alliance have life before 2022?
At the moment, they look confused. They are not sure what to do. And I will say they are confused because right now it is October, right? Going to November. And if people don't seem to have a plan, if people seem to not have a strategy,
right.
If there is no any seriousness in terms of the work plan, if they would not see them arranging their meetings one after the as a team, not individuals, because you will see Mudavadi going the other side, you will see Kalonzo, I was told the other day, was not even in the country, doing his own businesses and all that stuff, and you still tell me that you are on the course. They seem confused, and that's why, like you said earlier, they will not, it will be a two-horse race, even though I disputed that one, because you also see, you also appear to be doing something. You pretend to be doing something, but they're not doing that.
We are talking about everyone is looking to climb at the top of Mount Kenya.
Yes.
And looking at the two gentlemen that I'm talking about here, they have had to make a series of meetings, a series of political rallies, meeting here and there with different groups within the Mount Kenya region. But the biggest question now, who seem to be accepted most by the people of the Mount Kenya region?
Thank you for that question. But my view will be like this. Let's look at the 3 or 4 or these aspirants, these contestants. Whenever they go to the mountain, whom do they meet? First of all, whom are they meeting? If Raila Odinga goes to Mount Kenya, you will see him looking for leaders. You will see him looking for Peter Kenneth. You will see him meeting the rich people of Mount Kenya. You will see him talking about the elders of Mount Kenya. And then look at William Ruto. When he goes to Mount Kenya, whom does he look for? You will see him meeting the Mama Mbogas. You will see him meeting the church.
But the tycoons and the businessmen you're talking about here have got the say.
That's why I'm saying, okay, that's what has been branded. They have got the say.
It's branded or it's there?
It's not. They have no say. Actually, the people who have say, this is a fallacy actually to say that these wealthy tycoons have got the say. These people live in closed gates. They have actually locked themselves up. Even for themselves, they don't know what is happening. You ask somebody the price of a bread, they will not tell you the exact price because where do they shop? Right? So look at the common people down there. If William Ruto is going to the mountain, he is going to meet the hustlers, real hustlers, the bodas. You see him meeting them. You see him empowering them. So who do you think? You see, it should be very clear that the Mwananchi, even though they are not rich, some of them are most learned. Some of them are educated. They have knowledge. They know also what's happening. They know who is for them and who is against them. So when you are going to empower these small businesses, people who are vulnerable, you empower them, you make them somebody, then the feedback is very clear that it is the person who is meeting the people who are the majority and another one meeting the tycoons who are the few. Surely then we know
in
who's
as much as they are few,
yes.
Why do you rule out, in your argument, it seems that you're ruling out their influence in terms of the way the voting should go, at which direction, looking at the Mount Kenya region?
We have had people with money in Mount Kenya. Okay, let me give you an example of William Kabogo. William Kabogo is the governor of Kiambu, all right? William Kabogo, as per se, is very rich, right?
Former governor.
Former governor. Now, look at what happened during the time of election. Look at this man called Waititu. Waititu was a hooligan, was somebody who could not even be but you see, he was able to defeat the educated Kabogo, the rich Kabogo, and he had performed, by the way. We cannot rule it out because he was only attacking some women. He made some few comments about women. I'm told that's the reason why they voted him out. But no, when you are rich, there is also a gap between the rich and the poor, and there is a way in which the poor want to associate with somebody who is closer to them. Right. Yes. So, to me, you meeting the rich, you continue meeting the rich, and let another one meet the poor. You will see who has the votes. Right. Yes. Actually, the votes are with the poor.
Right. I need to understand something here, Bonaprotas.
Yes.
Why is it so key? We are so much into climbing this mountain, so-called Mount Kenya.
Yes,
Why is it so key?
The mountain has numbers. The mountain has numbers. They know how to vote. They have been voting actually in one direction. So that's why it is crucial, because they are the largest community in this country, and we have had this aspect of tribalism. And because now they are not having one of their own at the top, that's why everybody is scrambling for Mount Kenya votes. Right. But again, let us also not forget, President Moi was president for many years without Mount Kenya votes as per se. He was not really, because look at who was fighting Moi, but he was still winning. So to say that when Mount Kenya supports you, you will win, that one alone is not enough. There is this aspect, and I was trying to even talk to my friend the other day, that when you are in school, my friend, and you are doing subjects. Another one, in mathematics you score 90, in Swahili you score 10, in English you score 30, another one you score 100. Look at the variation. But there's another one who's getting 40, 50, 40, 50, 40, 50. You see, you got 90, but you got 10 in another subject. When you do the average, you know where you get. In politics, it's just about consistency and maintaining. You go to coast, you have some substantive number of votes. You go to the mountain, you don't need everybody in the mountain. No, it will be a fallacy. You only need some substantive votes from the mountain. You go to Western, you go to Rift Valley, you come to Nairobi. At the end of the day, somebody who was targeted to get the whole votes from a region, you will be ahead of that person because you have maintained averagely.
Very true. Every single presidential contestant who is looking forward to become president, how key is it for them to surround or work together with one of the individuals in Mount Kenya region? Of what importance does it have? And if at all, they don't pick a running mate from the Mount Kenya region, will it not work on their favor?
From the voting pattern of this country, tribalism, like I said, has taken root. And people think that if you don't pick, because actually Mount Kenya right now, they think that they can only be safe maybe if they have the running mate, one of their own as the deputy president, and maybe some few ministerial positions from the mountain. That's what they think. They're even forgetting that right now they have the president, and we still had people from Kariobangi who are Kikuyus being chased away by the police at night, and it was very cold, and it was curfew, and we had a lot of problems. Pandemic was there, problems were everywhere, but still one of them. So actually, what people forget is that tribes don't rule, individuals do rule.
Right.
If tribes really rule, let's be honest, if tribes really rule, then in Baringo, will we still be experiencing what we're experiencing right now when the president was for 24 years in power, Moi? And look at what's happening in Baringo.
Right.
Actually, tribes don't rule, and people should wake up to this reality. It is individuals who rule. In every community, you cannot say all communities, the whole community is bad. No, we have individuals who are bad in those communities. So the whole aspect of tribalism, that if one of our own is not there, then the whole of our aspect is not taken care of. It's not good. Let's have a plan. Let's vote for somebody who has a plan for each and every county.
Right.
Not only for a specific county or region.
Very true.
Yes.
Right. Last but not least, on our matters about Mount Kenya region.
Yes.
What do you feel, or rather, how do you feel, if you look at the electorates within the Mount Kenya region?
Yes.
Can they have confidence with any of the leaders outside those whom they know that hail from their regions?
From history, we'll say that they have actually Mount Kenya after when Moi took over, they were never united. Even in 2002, when they were going into election, Uhuru Kenyatta was on the ballot, and at the same time, Kibaki was also on the ballot. So they're all Kikuyus, they're all people from the mountain. Two of them come up for the same position. People opted for one against the other. So to say, as in my view, Mount Kenya will be safe in anybody's hand who has the agenda of Mount Kenya.
Right.
The agenda of Mount Kenya, and this phobia that is being sold, even for Raila Odinga, I cannot say that he can be a very bad person to Mount Kenya. It's just something that has been branded that is a bad person. What I will say for Raila Odinga, let him have a good plan that is workable, seem to be workable. Then everybody should elect him. Right. But as it is right now, William Ruto is ahead of everybody as far as Mount Kenya votes are concerned. He's ahead of everybody because it also depends on whom do you meet when you go to the mountain. You are meeting leaders, he's meeting the common Mwananchi. So you see, those are different aspects. The leaders are the ones walking here around, and then Mwananchis are the one walking with the other person around. So you see the difference. That is why even in the Mashujaa Day celebration last time, you saw people cheering William Ruto when he came to the stadium because he has been with them. He resonates well with the people on the ground. Right. But again, unlike Raila Odinga, whom was he mentioning? He was mentioning Kibaki. Who is Kibaki? Somebody, a rich person. He was mentioning those other elements. He was not mentioning how he was interacting with common Mwananchi. He didn't mention something like that. And that is how William Ruto is always beating them, turning. Yeah. Right.
Moving forward, we have an exercise going on, that is the voter registration.
Yes.
In, I believe, week 3. And according to the IBC, it seems that their target may not be met. Simply, there is a low number of turnouts, those who are trying to come out and register. And even though we have that mentality as Kenyans to wait for the last minute rush,
yes,
but things are not good in terms of the numbers.
Yes, yes.
What exactly do you feel are the factors that are bringing out low numbers of people coming out to register as voters?
There is this aspect that has been ignored, and I think it's taking roots from history, from what has happened in the past. People don't seem to have confidence in the elections anymore. There are those who think that elections are rigged, despite the fact that they vote, their votes don't count. There are those who think that the election in this country is decided by a few individuals. That even
is it a thought or it's a reality?
It is not a reality, it's a fallacy. And that's why I'm saying people should really rethink, and we should have what we call civic education. People should be sensitized on the importance of voting and how their votes count.
Right.
Because you see, like we started by saying, many people turn up in a rally, and we think that we can convert that one to be votes. Now, when the reality comes out, you start looking at, you thinking that your votes were stolen because many people are turning up in your rallies. How come they did not translate into votes? So what we have to be doing right now is people should really wake up and say, we don't have the luxury to say that we don't have to vote, that votes is useless. That you take, some people say wewe chungana na maisha yako, achana na siasa, chungana na maisha yako, siasa itakuletea chakula kwa meza. That is what they comment. But the reality is,
right,
if we have poor leadership, then even your own livelihood is affected down here. So it doesn't matter whether that person knows you, he doesn't have to know you. Nobody should know everybody in this country for you to be elected as a president. What we have to do is vote in an agenda and hold accountable that person if he fails to honor his own agenda. Because actually, they are the ones who formulate these agendas. They bring it to us for public participation. We exercise our sovereignty by our sovereign power by electing. So we elect wrong people, and then we know this one has a good agenda, but because he has not given you something, you say no, this one no. Phobia, people start selling fear. Oh, this one, if you elect this one, you will be like this, you will be like that. No, people should think critically. Well, this is an election. It is a constitutional right. We have to participate in election. How are you going to participate in election? Your work is, and people who don't vote are the ones who complain even more. You wonder, why are you complaining? You didn't vote. You didn't register as a voter. You are now complaining. Why are you complaining?
Right.
Yes. So instead of sitting back and watching things, come out in large numbers and register as a voter. Take your national IDs. If you do not have one, get it. In fact, the government should make it quick for those who have lost their IDs, those who have not taken the IDs, like high school graduates, those who are coming from school, they don't have IDs. Let them be sensitized. Let the government make it easy for them to get IDs in 2 weeks, in 1 week. The ID should be out, so let them register, and then let them participate in this constitutional aspect of voting. Yes.
Right. Now, I want to take another short break. When we come back,
yes,
we'll be looking at whatever is happening around Mombasa County, talking about the governorship race.
Yes.
It is quite a heated race looking forward. Looking at the different people who have come out to say that they will be vying for governorship, it's quite hard to tell who is going to carry out the day, and some of the happenings also around our areas in the coastal region, Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale. We'll be coming back to discuss that. Remember, that is also part and parcel of the road to the 2022. We are now done with looking at the national level politics. We'll be moving to whatever is happening in a coastal region, particularly Mombasa here, and trying to dig deeper also in some of the happenings around the gubernatorial race in the 2022 general election in Mombasa County. Don't go too far. We're now taking another short break. Keep your comments coming. I'll be looking at them as we get along with the show. It is quite hard to tell right now in Mombasa who is going to be the next governor for Mombasa. We have different names that have come on board saying that we are looking forward to replace Bwana Joho upon his term elapsing in the next months.
Yeah.
But according to you, and I know you're part and parcel of the residents of Mombasa, and you've been here, you've been following up, you've been following some of these political happenings as well in Mombasa.
Yes.
How are things at in terms of the gubernatorial race in Mombasa? Do you feel like we have quite a race that is to be looked upon?
Yeah, actually, the most important thing is who has actually marketed himself, who is more popular to the people, whether in good faith or in bad faith. But who is very known, who is much known among the people who are contesting. Now, I will say that so far we have 3 candidates. We have got Suleiman Shabal, we have got Abdul Samad, and we have got Omar Hassan Sarai. So far, those ones have emerged already, and they have made it clear that they will be on the rest. We have other people like Toya, we have other people like Ali Mbogo, we have many other people also who have also shown interest of being running for the governor. But they are not really doing enough to show that they want the governor. But there is something I want to say in terms of the governor. Well, Suleiman Shabal, he is in ODM. And obviously they will be going for a nomination with Abdul Samad. I do not know any other person who will want to be to go for the nomination of ODM, unless, but for now there are those 2.
Before even we get to the to him getting the nomination,
yes,
the biggest question is, we've had some leaders within ODM, particularly in Mombasa here, who have said that ODM party is not going to entertain any unloyal, untrustworthy leaders who just come into the party at a time at which they feel. We have people who have stayed within the party. They've been part and parcel of building the party in the coastal region and in Mombasa, and they're the ones who are supposed to be given the tickets and the nomination, you know.
That's not democracy. You see, what is ODM? What is ODM? ODM is Orange Democratic movement, right? Orange
Does democracy,
the whole democracy.
Democracy and loyalty, does it work hand in hand?
That's what, of course now. Well, okay, what is democracy? Democracy and loyalty. Being loyal doesn't mean you are not democratic, or it doesn't mean you are democratic. You can choose not to be. Democratic means that you are accommodating contrary opinions. You are able to accommodate all contrary opinions. That is what you call democracy. That somebody has got a right to say whatever he feels he has to say, even if you don't agree with it.
Okay.
But you give him space to say whatever he wants to say. That's democracy. Now, you cannot purport to be democratic yourself when you don't seem to be democratic when it comes to action. ODM has been a party which has labeled to be the most dictatorship or dictatorial kind of party.
Right.
It doesn't. We have never had an election, any election of the party elections. We have never had that one since its creation. I don't know, back in 2006 or something like that. We haven't had ODM having meetings where they have agreed that we are going to do election.
Right.
So democratically, it has failed. Now, coming to here in Mombasa, of course, Joho is the deputy party leader. He has a say. And it is not the first time Joho will be, if he doesn't, in case they don't give Shabal a ticket, it will not be the first time they are doing this. Here in Changamwe, during the Patrice election, nomination of Patrice Ward, we had Okola and Fadhili. They were contesting. Okola won against Fadhili. And it was announced by the IBC that somebody who, I don't know if it was the IBC by that time, but actually whatever body that was overseeing that election, they declared that it is Okola who won, I think with a margin of about 6 votes.
6?
Yes, 6. Actually 6. One got 30 something, another one got 20 something. 6 votes, I think. 27 against 21 or something like that. But it was, I think, a margin of 6. Okola won by 6. So they looked at that margin and said it was very small. And because they wanted Fadhili now, they said they gave Fadhili the certificate. When Okola ran to court, and the ruling is that, you see, party issues are handled by party tribunal, right? So you go to the party tribunal, they say we did not have an election, it was a consensus method. And then they wait until people are not aware that there will be an election. Then they all of a sudden say we shall have an election tomorrow, when you are not even prepared. That's how they get to rig into these things. So if there is a party that is full of rigging and has never been transparent in their affairs, it's ODM.
Very true.
So now Suleiman Shabal
must find ODM, and they can get a right of reply, you know.
Yeah, they will. They can prove. I've been a member of ODM before, even until that time. I was still a member of ODM. I was a live member of ODM. I was even an agent of ODM in Changamwe. I was at the polling station. I was an agent there. So I have been defending ODM party. Unfortunately, it's difficult. It becomes difficult that the one who wins is not the one who is given the certificate.
Right.
How then can you trust that party?
Very true. There is a bone of contention here is between the two individuals. Abdul Swamad, the Mvita member of parliament, and we have businessman Shahbal. They are both looking forward to get the ODM ticket to run for the gubernatorial race. Looking at the two, whom do you think is better placed to become the flag bearer of ODM in the
I wish Shabal will listen to me as I speak this morning. Shabal will never be given a certificate of ODM. He should take this one to the bank. He will never be given the certificate of ODM. The deputy party leader of ODM, they seem to be having a cordial relationship. They work together. No. Actually, Shabal is a businessman. Shabal has money, and the party leader of ODM is somebody who wants somebody who can be able to give. He's not to give, but he wants somebody who is able to give. And of course, that's the reason why he brought Shabal on board. But Shabal and ODM, these are two different things. Because Joho is fronting, and let's be honest, is fronting Abdul Swamad. Joho and Abdul Swamad, that's why they bring the issue of loyalty. The question of loyalty is coming because Abdul Swamad has been a member of ODM since. He has not seemed to party hop. People forget the reasons why people party hop. People don't party hop as per will. It is because of the brutality and lack of transparency in those particular parties that makes somebody uncomfortable, and actually it makes somebody to shift from one political party to another.
Right.
Now, if they exercise if they exercise that democracy, you will not see somebody but hoping. So Suleiman Shahbal should only have two options. Either run as an independent candidate or just look for any other party other than ODM. Any other party other than ODM. That way, he will have the light of the day. Otherwise, if they are subjected to nomination with Abdul Swamad, even if he has numbers, he will not win. He will not be given the certificate. And number two, that one now gives Sarai a leeway. Because the moment Shahbal is going to be frustrated because he's not going to be given a certificate, he will either opt for independent candidate and therefore votes of ODM will be split. And even if people don't like Sarai, he will now be, because he will be
now, for instance, if at all they do some bit of consensus and they reach out an agreement, don't you think it will work to the worst of Sarai?
Politically speaking, there is no agreement and consensus that can come between Abdul Swamad and this businessman,
Right.
Shahbal. What I know, I have known Shahbal from 2013 when he started to actually in 2013 he contested on a Wiper ticket.
Right.
And before he came to Wiper, he was in UDF, the one from Salim Mudavadi. He ran from Salim Mudavadi's party, he came to Wiper. Now during the Wiper, he almost won. Actually, there was a better allegation of rigging, but it was no rigging. In my view, because I was supporting him by that time, there was no actually rigging.
Right.
There was some mismanagement of his politics during the time of election. You see, tomorrow is election. Today you are hosting the agents from across Mombasa at a hotel. By that time they were in Cyrock Hotel, and I was there. And the way they managed that team of agents was very poor. Joho team penetrated, they gave them the money, and then the following day it was election. You can imagine the outcome now. That's how Joho won in 2013. In 2017, he went to the wrong party. People did not want Jubilee.
What do you mean wrong party?
People did not want Jubilee in Mombasa. Mombasa by that 2017, Mombasa was ODM zone, was NASA. And therefore any other party was regarded as an alien. And that is why he didn't make it. But in 2022, it was prime for him. If we could now stuck with the right candidate. And I think if we could have gone to UDA for that say, you could be...
Do you want to tell me UDA right now within Mombasa, it's welcomed?
UDA is not only welcome, it is resonating well with what people want to hear. You see,
Mombasa County, we are talking about
everywhere,
Mombasa County here.
Everywhere. And here in Mombasa, of course I'm talking about Mombasa. In Mombasa County, and I will tell you for free that even the one who is going to win in Mombasa, in Mombasa County will not be ODM. Both from the governor, like and Changamwe here. Let me talk about that hierarchy. Governor, from my analysis, it will be Sarai, even if people don't want him. But Sarai is going to be the governor. Let me give you why. Let me tell you the reasons why Sarai will be the governor.
Explain.
ODM is going to go into a nomination. All right? And then one is going to be agitated, one is going to be aggrieved, one is going to be rigged out. And then they will be split. Of course, between Abdul Swamad and Shahbal, they will be split. So each one will go on. So whose votes are being split here? ODM votes, right? They will be split. Now, what about UDA? UDA is not going for a nomination. We have got this man called Sarai on ballot. So, of course, there are those who doesn't want him, but because they will feel like, now our person whom we wanted, maybe Shahbal or Abdul Swamad, is not wanted, let's resolve to support this one.
Right.
Let me tell you, if Suleiman Shahbal defeats Abdul Swamad will support Shahbal. But if Shahbal is rigged out, if Abdul Swamad wins, then Shahbal cannot support Abdul Swamad. Now that's another irony there, from political speaking and the history of these individuals.
Right.
Abdul Swamad can support really. If he loses fairly, he will support Suleiman Shahbal. But if Suleiman Shahbal loses against Shahbal, against Abdul Swamad, he will go for independent. He will run for independent candidate. He will not support Abdul Swamad. He will say, I was rigged out. And that is how things are going to now happen. And that is how this man, Sarai, gets a leeway.
Very true. Right. Last but not least,
yes.
If Kenyans are watching us right now, and of course they're watching, what can you advise as we wait for the 2022 general election, and how key is it for us as Kenyans and the electorate to follow up some of these political happenings in the country?
One, we have seen other people saying we shall be given 6,000 every month when they win election. You have had another one saying that they will give us 100 million every financial year every constituency will be given 100 million for people to do business. We have seen others saying they are going to improve the economy. I don't know how. They haven't really, the one Kenya Alliance, they haven't really said which one. Now, you Kenyans who are watching should really look at the plan and these agendas of each individual. Do you want 6,000? And are you sure 6,000 is really, is it real? Is it real? Or is it just a sweetener for people to vote some individuals in? And which other aspect will you be creative if you enhance that? My view will be like this. Elect somebody, instead of you being given the 6,000, elect somebody who has a plan of taking the 6,000, subdividing it. Some money goes to education, another one goes to the hospital. So that when you go to the hospital, you are not asked anything. That you give this amount of money. No. You are treated free of charge. If you go to school, your child will be able to study and get good quality education free of charge. That is what we want, so that you can work and have something to eat. But if you are given 6,000 and you still go to the hospital to pay, you still go to school to pay school fees, it's not logical. Now, the 100 million that is coming per constituency for businesses, well, it somehow sounds well. But we have seen CDF money also having scandals. We have some specific individuals getting that. Right. How sure are we that this money, when it comes, it will be fairly distributed? So elect individuals based on the plan that is workable, that makes sense, but not just any other plan that will not really have any impact in our day-to-day living.
Right.
Yes.
Very true.